Ready?
I guess so. Present.
Due to some graphic images in the next story, please feel free to exit the room if you need at any point. And again, the wing staff agencies are in the back by the bar. Our next storyteller is from the 5th Civil Engineer Squadron. While on deployment in 2009 to Afghanistan, he received devastating news from back home. Over the next several years, his family would endure multiple obstacles. After 12 years of honorable service on active duty, he was medically retired from the Air Force. In 2018, we are lucky enough to have him rejoin Team Minot and his beloved Dirt Boy shop as a civilian. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Robert Owens.
So originally I was a farm boy down in southern Missouri. Joined active duty October 2001. Medically retired in 2014. And this was the beginning of a journey I never expected. I was deployed to Kabul, Afghanistan in 2009. I was almost done with the deployment. I received a phone call from my wife. She'd had thyroid cancer. Moving on a little, 2011, my lower back gave out on me. November 2011, I had my first of 5 back surgeries. Well, it didn't work. In May of 2012, I ended up having to have my back fused. You can see in the pictures here, the one on the right-hand side, I had 6 screws that looked just like that with 4 rods, and it was holding everything into place. They put a little bone stimulating paste in there to make it all one solid bone. So in July of 2012, I was a week out from going back to work, and I woke up with a huge lump beside the incision. We rushed back to the neurosurgeon. It had gotten infected, and I had to go ahead and have my 3rd surgery. So while I was in the hospital, I ended up getting a PICC line. It was a long-term IV that they put in my left arm so that I could give liquid antibiotics to myself twice a day. That went on for about pretty much the whole summer. By the time summer was over, I weighed in at a whopping 134 pounds. I looked terrible. In November, I woke up, same thing, had another lump, went back in for surgery, and then same protocol as the first one, but this time, 3 weeks later, I ended up having yellow pus moved out of the incision area. And apparently the hardware had the infection all over it, and they couldn't get rid of it, so they had to pull the hardware. The doc also told me at that time that I should probably consider buying a 1-story house because I could never use stairs. I wouldn't be able to use the stairs by the age of 40. So a little later on, April of 2013, I was recovered. I think life was good again. The doc wanted a routine MRI and just kind of look and see how everything was healing. Well, while I was in the tube, the technician went 1 vertebrae higher than what they normally do. And that's when she discovered that I had a series. It was a fluid-filled cyst that ran from my lower back all the way to my brain. And that's when I discovered that I had Chiari Malformation. It's a condition where your brain sticks out of the bottom of your skull. It's very rare. 1 in 25,000 people have it, and it's mainly women. Because of my brain herniation, my cerebral spinal fluid was getting shoved down the center of my spinal cord. So apparently I was born with this. So for the last 30 years, fluid was getting shoved down the center of my spinal cord and it couldn't come back out. Well, once they discovered it, I had 2 spots that was about to rupture in my spinal cord. One was between the shoulder blades and the other one was mid-neck. And if either one of those 2 spots would have ruptured, it could have been extremely bad. So 4 weeks later, I was in surgery in St. Paul, Minnesota. During the surgery, they took out a 3-inch piece of skull. They cut the center of my first vertebrae out in my neck, and they took these electric probes and they zapped my cerebral tonsils and caused the brain to suck them back up into the skull. So then they closed with like a synthetic covering, so now I've got a permanent hole in the back of my head. You can see by the diagram there on the middle image, you can see they took out the back part of the skull, and then the first vertebrae is where they cut it out. And that little mushroom piece there, that's the cerebral tonsils. That's what was sticking down out of the skull. So I got to spend 3 weeks in the hospital that time. I ended up having a fluid leak, a cerebral fluid leak, and it was probably the most painful thing I'd ever endured. I was finally released. We were on our way home. Now, during this time, I was going through my med board. It was a long process, but it finally finished up, and I was retired in June of 2014. Meanwhile, my youngest son, Noah, he was 3 at the time, he wasn't speaking yet. He was barely making any noises at all. And we got him into the doctor, and we discovered that his head was going oblong. And so they referred us over to a neurosurgeon in Minneapolis. So when we got over there, the neurosurgeon told us that he had developed craniosynostosis. It's where the top part of the head fused too early at too young of an age. So his head couldn't grow and develop like it needed to. So this was the start of an awesome journey for him. We ended up going into surgery. It was supposed to have been a 4-hour surgery and ended up taking 9 hours. And what they did was they scalped him and they took his skull. They basically cut the top of his skull off. They cut it into a bunch of little pieces, put it all back together. But when they put it back together, the skull was too big. They closed the scalp, and from the skull being too big, it cut off circulation to the back part of his head on his scalp. And he ended up having a 5-inch by 5-inch patch of scalp dye on the back of his head. So they didn't know what to do from there. They referred us over to another children's hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. And after we'd gotten settled in, been there for a couple days, they started the surgery process. First surgery, they ended up taking the swimmer's muscle out of his back and they placed it up on top of his head. You can see by the picture, the left side, that was the first surgery that they did. So part of it, and eventually part of it died. So then his second surgery over there, they took the scalp from behind the back of the ear and basically sliced it in half, and they rotated that up on top of his head. Part of that died. So then after that didn't work, they ended up taking another muscle out of the other side of his back. They took a main vein out of his leg, and when they put the new muscle on top, they connected the new vein to the muscle, and they ran it behind his ear and connected it to his jugular to try to get more blood supply up to his head. Well, as you can see by the picture, part of that died too. It was just that he was so little that the veins were so small, they just couldn't get the blood to go into the edges of the muscle. So we were there for a total of 34 days, and doctors really didn't have a clue what to do at that point. So they're like, well, let's just send you guys home. We'll let his head sort itself out, and we'll kind of take it from there. So you can see by the picture, that black stuff, obviously that's all dead. And in the top upper corner, you can see where it was actually going all the way down to the skull. Poor little feller, he ended up having 21 surgeries, and it lasted over a course of 7 years. But finally, you can see that was summer of this year, he finally got a full head of hair, and he's possibly got one surgery left just to go in and take care of some scar tissue, replant some hair, make him look normal again. But there for a while, he looked like Frankenstein. Felt kind of bad for him. And another nice thing about it too was that it all happened right after I got out, so I was still on terminal. So I didn't have to worry about not working. I was still getting paid. And then the way everything worked out was the week that we got home, I got a job offer from Baker Hughes, and I went to work for them the following week. So it all worked out really well. So Back to 2015, I started not doing so well. I ended up having to have my second brain surgery. In fact, with this one, Noah was scheduled 2 days after mine, so we turned it into one big long trip. I had my surgery, the day I got released, I called a taxi, took the taxi over to his hospital, and then that way I could be there for his surgery, and then a couple days later, we got to come home. A little more time went on. 2017, I wasn't doing so well, but this time it was different. Fluid was getting blocked by massive scar tissue I had in the back of my head. And I literally felt like before surgery, I was losing my mind. I would set something down. I couldn't remember where I put it. I couldn't think. I was managing a concealment furniture factory at the time. Like I was to the point where I didn't even want to come to work anymore because I didn't know what I needed to tell my workers every day. And about 3 weeks before surgery, my fingertips started going numb. And I ended up running the tip of my thumb into a table saw. Never even felt it. Luckily, I was watching because it could have been a bad day. So went back in for surgery, and it went a lot like the first one. I got to spend 3 weeks in the hospital due to a cerebral spinal fluid leak. But once I got out, that was it. I was able to recover, and that was my last surgery. Now, during all the times of surgeries between Noah and myself, my wife Jessica's health was going downhill. When she had cancer, they gave her radioactive iodine to go in and kill the remaining thyroid and cancer cells that was in her throat. Well, over the years, it caused her to go into ovarian failure. It's like early menopause. So as everything was happening, she had massive weight gain. She went from 155 pounds up to 225 pounds in like 3 or 4 months. She got really depressed. She had a lot of anxiety, and so yeah, it was massive mood swings. But with all these things going on, like we confided in each other, we vented to each other our frustrations that we had, but most importantly, we stayed strong because we had to. We had to do it for ourselves and our 4 kids. We knew that God had the situation handled. It wasn't easy sometimes, but we got through it. We had to. It's like the old saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And stronger we were emotionally, and later we discovered physically too. 2018, I took a job back up here in my old shop, 5th Civil Engineering Squadron, the Dirt Boy shop, and man, did it feel good to be a Dirt Boy again. I had one last follow-up with my neurosurgeon. Things were good. I was fully recovered. I said, hey, doc, am I going to be able to work out again? And he's like, yeah. He said, just stick to 8 reps or more. He was like, you'll be just fine. And that's all I needed to hear. 2019, I got big into fitness again. And man, was it great. I'd always been in and out of the gym, but this time I had years of frustration to get rid of. So I started out nice and slow, kept my 8 reps or more. But after a couple months, I realized I was stronger than I'd ever been. Thanks to all the trials that I went through over the previous years, day after day, I kept working at it, trying to build muscle. I started eating really clean, tracking my macros, finally started putting on muscles, had 5 pounds of muscle, I lost 2.5 pounds of fat. After that, I kept up with my super clean diet, and I realized that my body was starting to feel fantastic. In fact, I felt the best mentally and physically I'd ever felt before. Today, my max leg press is 1,202 pounds, and I can squat 315 pounds. I'm even going to do my first bodybuilding show in October down in Fargo. For a guy who didn't know if he was ever going to be able to work again, this was pretty fantastic. My wife Jessica, she never gave up on herself either. Through all of our stuff, she's currently back down 76 pounds, and I'm super proud of her. All these tough times made my mind strong, and getting fit built my confidence and my self-esteem and turned me into the guy that I am today. Just because we have tough times in our life doesn't mean life has to stop. Most cases, it can make us so much better. We can't just sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. We are responsible for our own choices, and I'm more aware of that now than I ever have been. Sure, I could have chosen the couch, but that's not who I am. Jessica and I, we wanted more. We wanted to do better. So we both signed up to go to school. We both signed up for schooling through ISSA. I become a certified personal trainer. Jessica become a certified nutritionist. We teamed up and created Owens Revolution Fitness so that we could help others take control and get their lives back just like we did. If we hadn't gone through what we did, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are today. Thank you.